All right, everybody, just getting set up here on Colorcast, local commentary, and then YouTube as well. This is going to be the MLB The Show 22 beta review and thoughts. And I don't know exactly how all of this is going to work out and pan out in April, but I'm going to get thoughts as far as someone that's played the game since 2008 on the PlayStation 3 with Ryan Howard on the cover extensively, and from there in. So let's just go to it at this point and get in right into it. So we're going to cover batting, base running, pitching, fielding, co-op thoughts, and some things in general. So first, I want to start with the specifics of the main game before we get into all of the online portions of it, because the online portions of it are what you already know, what it's always going to be. So let me get this queued up as well, and then we can get started here. I think it's going to be a good thing to revisit my Otani piece from the first time when it got announced. So I want to get to that here. Okay, so I'm going to have that good to go as well, just in case that's needed. I also have to unplug this. Okay, so let's officially start now. So the hitting aspect of MLB The Show 22 beta and all of that. So it seems like all of the games were defaulted to All Star. So whether or not you follow Kevin God, Kyle Next Door, Fuzzy, Cougs, all the guys that usually stream. I know there's a ton of other names that I'm forgetting or I don't always follow all of that stuff. They have suggested no matter what input method that you use, whether it be just timing, the regular buttons with directional, or the zone hitting that you're used to where you have to line up the bat and then swing. No matter what difficulty you use, everything seems to be defaulted on All Star when you're playing online, especially in the beta. But what they're suggesting is bump everything up one level. So All Star is really Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame is really Legend, and Legend is just out of this world hard. So my complaints that I've had throughout the beta, and again, this might change in the first week of April with everything else considered. Playing this game from 2008 on the PlayStation 3, you could go into a veteran or all-star difficulty. I mostly played between veteran and all-star at that time. You could relatively score in a 9-inning game as long as you're paying attention and doing your due diligence, close to maybe 6 to 10 runs. If you're consistently on veteran, that'd probably be closer to like 15 to 17 runs if you had something really good going. On this all-star, it really does seem to be bumped up. I'm using timing and directional, and I'll get into why I wasn't using zone in here in a little bit. But in that sense of it, I'm lucky in these 6 inning games online here from this beta. If I get maybe 4 hits, 4 or 5 hits, if I hit a home run at all, if I score a couple runs at all, and that's just from getting something that has to be grooved right down the middle and has to be on a perfect. This is the problem that I have with this game going forward ever since all the stuff from PlayStation 3 now going on. Granted, I've played the MLB since the original PlayStation one when that was announced and all that, back when it was 989 Studios. That's how old I am. But the thing with All Star now, and the thing with the way that it's been going, especially on the PlayStation 4 on, this is catered to a lot of people that play zone and have zone hitting. And let me tell you why. Because when you launch that bat, when you have that little bat icon and you line it up with the ball getting in the zone and you press X to swing, not only do you get double boosting from power and accuracy, having everything else in the zone, but you also are able to hit balls like Vladimir Guerrero Sr. So if you're going 6 feet down into the zone or 6 feet up or 6 feet left and right, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you can knock the ball out of the ballpark. And it really doesn't make any sense in that regard. So when I'm using directional or when I'm using timing, maybe I can hold up and left on the D-pad or up and right. Doesn't matter if you're using Nintendo Switch, Xbox, or PlayStation. But for the directional side of it, maybe I can hold one of those directions and take a pitch that was in the top left and maybe put it outside. But on the timing aspect of where I was using the most in this regard, it was really difficult because if you didn't get a perfect on your timing, that meaning all it really goes to is circle for contact. So it could be B, A, or X, depending on the Xbox controls or whatever you want to use. If you're using circle for contact, X for normal, or square for power, if you're not getting a perfect, you're not hitting the ball out. You're not hitting it anywhere if you're using timing. And this is where I go into having the problem with the beta and all of that. Because back then, I know you had a little bit of zone hitting. You can kind of change whether it be a starfighter shape or different shapes, whether it's transparent or how it's moved around, or be that as it may. But it's gone away, especially from 09 all the way to present, and especially from MLB, I would say 17 to 22 now, where if you're not using zone hitting, you can't get to the point where you can play games online past an all-star level and be competitive, because you just don't have the same advantages that zone hitting people have. Again, they can hit the ball 6 feet, 7 feet off the plate, no matter if it's to the left, to the right, up, or down. No problem. And that's really an issue, because what you're doing to me when I'm looking at it, and it's not just because when you turn 35 and having cerebral palsy, I don't have that much problem playing video games and all of that. I find it to be, a good use of my time to get away from some troubles and things like that. I'm not on struggle street. I can definitely handle a controller and all of that stuff. But it's really, really difficult when you're not using zone hitting. And what I feel like that does is when you're playing these co-op games or anything else online, especially, let's say you're playing this beta online against other people. You know about the beta, you're going to play against high-end players for the most part, right? So you're going online. I'm not going to sit here and call myself a casual player. I'm probably a wily veteran because I've been playing the game for a long time. Granted, I didn't buy it every year, but I started in 08. So let's say 08, 11, 14, MLB 16, 17, 20, and then now 22. Kind of skipping some years here and there. But I've played a lot. I've been around. This isn't the first rodeo as far as playing this game. But I've noticed as you've gone along, it's kind of stemmed away from that in the zone hitting. So let's say in this regard, I go ahead and I play the beta, and I'm going up and matched against people, right? So let's say I'm the way I am, and I'm playing with one of my friends. It's the first time. Maybe I can get 4 or 5 hits or a home run here and there. Maybe I can score a couple of runs if I'm doing my best. Anyone else that's a casual and is going to be lined up against good players, and granted that might change now because the Nintendo Switch is coming into play. The Xbox is only in its second year, and PlayStation players have been playing together for a long time now. But if you're having some of your casual friends going in there trying to experience this game for the first time, and you're locked up against somebody that knows how to really play the game, regardless of the settings that you choose when you play online in a co-op, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. And that's what I feel like is going to be a misnomer for people that want to play online. First timers, yes. Offline, there's a lot of ways between timing, zone, directional, different camera views and things like that, different PCI anchors where you can have your anchor set up this year so you don't have to move the analog stick. You can lock it into place by clicking the left stick in and then moving the left stick while holding R2 or the right trigger to lock it up or lock it down or lock it to the left and right. There's different things that you can do. That works great online, but offline, but online, you're wondering what exactly is going to happen to me if I'm a casual player and I'm matched up against somebody really good. Am I going to get destroyed? Am I going to have the same tools? Or am I going to have to play a certain way in order to be successful online? And that's what I figure out is to be a little bit of a problem here. I'm going to scroll through a couple of these settings just in case I miss anything. Right now, the beta is officially offline, but there is some stuff in the settings you can go into the batting practice to kind of try to cater some of these things that you can remember. So really isn't anything else to speak of on the batting base running aspect of it. So I want to move to pitching. So again, defaulted is All-Star, right? So All-Star is going to be basically what you're going to be playing when you're playing these online games. If you go to Diamond Dynasty or some of those pay-to-play modes, you might find yourself with a little bit of disservice as far as once you get up there, if you're just going to get destroyed anyway, or people that have better teams than you are going to destroy you anywhere. But I'm going to leave that for another aspect a little later in this talk. So just in the pitching aspect of it, from the co-op sides and playing the things in the beta, again, you're going to be playing on All-Star. This is another one of those problems that I have when I talk about the beta, as far as some of the newer players and as far as myself and all that thing is considered. So meter, that has been a staple in MLB The Show for a long time. So you'll pick a pitch, whether it be X to R1 within the 5 buttons, whether a pitcher has 5 pitches or not. They could have at least as few as 3 and as many as 5. So you'll pick a pitch, then you'll pick a location with the left stick as you kind of move some stuff around here, and then you'll ultimately press X to set it up, and then a timing meter will go. So you hold for the more power, and then when you get into the middle, you press the button again, and it will go, depending on how close you got with your accuracy, into the meter, whether it will go left, right, up, or down if you miss your timing, which makes a lot of sense. And granted, I'm totally fine with that. But the problem that I have now is going into the last couple of years, and this starts with MLB 21 and now MLB 22, and it's called pinpoint pitching. Some of you guys might really like it, some of you guys might really not. Sometimes you can just use X to pitch, you can use meter, you can use pulse. There's a lot of different opportunities, but a pinpoint is what I want to talk about here in the beta specifically and all of that again. So from 2021, now in 2022, it's pinpoint. And I can really strategically bring this out here to give you the biggest conception of what this will be. So you know what this is. This is just a regular Nintendo DS, right? So when I take this DS, and I'll grab this here, I'll set this recorder down here for a minute. When I take this DS, and it's really old, so don't mind that, you have something called the stylus. You remember the Nintendo DS, right? And you would have to draw on certain instances in order to be able to progress farther parts in the game. Now, when I thought about the Nintendo DS and I thought about some of those other games, I'm thinking, geez, I love the dual screens and stuff like that back in the day. It was like a portable Super Nintendo or portable Nintendo 64. But when I'm playing this baseball game, especially in this MLB The Show 22 beta, do I really want to be able to draw with the left analog stick the curvature of a curveball or the momentum of a fastball or a slider or a circle change or a knuckle curve or a palm ball or a fork ball? You get my point. The point is that you have to draw out the specific shapes and timing in order to be able to successfully throw your pitch, not just be able to pick your location and do all of that. So therein lies the problem. For experienced players that want to take the Nintendo DS type controls on an analog stick, whether it be your Joy-Con on the Nintendo Switch or the analog sticks on the PlayStation 5, 4, the Xbox One, Xbox Series XS, whether you want to do all of that, it's there for you. And pinpoint pitching allows you to have the greatest amount of accuracy more than anything else. And it seems to be that even if you time your meter at the most point, you still get more pitching accuracy in pinpoint. That's just the way that it is. So this is the surface level argument that I bring into the batting aspect of it and that I bring into the pitching aspect of it. You're better off using zone and you're better off using pinpoint. And if you can't use zone hitting and you can't use pinpoint pitching very well, you're going to be absolutely fucked as far as being competitive and stuff in the game. And that's again where I therein find the problem. I've been playing the game for a long time, as I've said. I'm very comfortable with the meter. I get it granted that All-Star is more like Hall of Fame, just like Kyle Next Door, Kevin God, Cougs, all those other guys, Demo, the ones that stream, Fuzzy. I get all that. All those guys are saying the game is significantly harder. That's fine. But when you're forcing me to be able to use certain things to be competitive online, that's where I find the problem. Look, San Diego Studios is going to come out and say, we're literally forcing you to use this. This is how you have to play our game in order to have fun with it. But what I'm telling you is if you want to be able to have fun and be successful online, you're going to have to find a way to either get used to zone hitting or pinpoint pitching, or that's it. Your main fun and components of everything else in game is going to be stemmed to offline play. I like offline play just as much as the next guy. I still think MLB The Show, granted, even though it isn't as good as it used to be in the PlayStation 3 days, it's fallen farther on the PS4 and the PS5, and the series consoles are just getting started. But I really am a little nervous on all that stuff. Because again, when I played those 3-on-3s, those 2-on-2s, and we're going to get to that point again here a little later here, when I'm playing those, I can tell that's what the other people are using because they're either hitting a pitch that's way off the plate or they're able to dot every single corner. It's not just because you're using Jacob deGrom. It's not just because you're using the best pitchers in order to get those pinpoints, accuracies, and everything else that you want. It's just the simple fact that that's what the best avenue is in pinpoint pitching, and that's what allows you to have the most success. And if you don't use it, you're going to be screwed. You're not going to be able to do all the things that you want to do. As far as the fielding aspect of it, thankfully, I do not have anything negative to say as far as what it's gone to. So some people like to use buttons. That's just throwing a button in the base and doing all that. I like using the button accuracy. It's kind of like timing a jump shot in NBA 2K. So you get it in the green, you can automatically get it out. You can preload your throws and everything else is good. What you always have to change your catch position indicator to is a drifting ball, because otherwise you get the little blue screen, and sometimes between that ball you don't know exactly where it's going, rather than the drifting ball where you just go underneath and then you press a button and catch it. So the fielding aspect I have no problems with. I think that's very, very good. On the general side of things, I could tell, especially into the beta, that there really isn't any kind of umpire inconsistencies, meaning sometimes they'll call stuff off the plate that's a strike or vice versa. Everything in the competitive aspect of the beta seemed to be perfect, as far as if you took a corner, that would automatically be a strike no matter what. Again, that might be beta conclusive. That might be different as far as when you're playing on online 2 or an online 3, right? That things might change. I would like to see, as the game going forward here in April, as the co-op mode is introduced, that you would keep some of the stuff personalized, because sometimes umpires blow calls, and that might be a change in the game as far as whether or not you need to lay off a pitch, or whether or not you can put the pitch there, or whether or not you can actually get the bat to the ball. And that's what I would like to be able to see. But like I said before, with the fielding aspect of it, thankfully, not much has changed. But this is where I want to get into the big point of the new things, because we talked about batting and base running, we talked about pitching and fielding, and we talked about some of the other stuff there that hasn't changed, but the batting and pitching definitely has. What I really want to get into is this, and this is the beta stuff, and this is the meat and potatoes of the 2-on-2, the 3-on-3, and the online latency and all of that. So when I wrote about this, when Shohei Ohtani got put on the cover and all of that, I mentioned that San Diego Studio, again, was a PlayStation platform, and then Rob Manfred and the rest of MLB said this can't be a first-party exclusive anymore, because if it goes out there, we're just not going to get as much money as we want. You better put it on Xbox and Nintendo platforms, or you're not getting that. So now it turned into a second-party type of thing. But what I mentioned is specifically at the time, especially last year, when Xbox players were introduced. Don't get me wrong. I think cross-generation platform gaming is a beautiful thing. But I mentioned one thing. The company profits very, very much off Diamond Dynasty. It's large. And now you have PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series, and Nintendo Switch gamers on a server. I think it's very important within those 5 install bases, when you're playing a game online, to have the game be able to be very successfully played and not have issues with lag and things like that, just completely take you out of the elements of everything else in the game. Cross-platform stuff is very important, but it's horrible when you can't implement all of it. So if Sony really went in there and felt like it, and MLB really went in there and felt like it, San Diego Studios really went in there and said, geez, we can't implement this the way that we want to, so we need to keep the player base small, that would have been fine. Now it's much bigger. You have the responsibility for San Diego Studios, Sony, PlayStation Studios, all of that, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, everything, all of those guys combining in together there, collaborating with each other and saying, look, we need to make this the greatest experience that we can make it, have it be the most stable, and have people be able to enjoy our game. You can't do that when games constantly disconnect, people slide all over the place, and people are seeing opposite things all over the screen that they're not supposed to be seeing, and outs turn into runs, and runs turn into outs, and the game just doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. That's horrible offline in terms of the certain aspects of it. And I really believe, back in the day especially, that this could have been one of those games, especially during the PlayStation 3 times. If this was a multi-platform game, then San Diego Studios would even be bigger now, because it was really good back then. But herein lies the problem with this game and everything else in between. So when you're playing an online 2v2 or an online 3v3, there was some issues inviting your friends. Quite frankly, the Xbox players and the Nintendo Switch players couldn't even send private invites to their own friends. Maybe that's going to be changed down the line. So maybe that won't be something that I'll harp on as much today. If you were lucky enough to be on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 side of the platforms, you would be able to invite your friends and everything else, no problem. But the issue was when you're playing a 2v2 in a 3v3 game. So I'm going to put this to you quite honestly. I tried about 30 times within the span, I think, of 4 days of when the beta and everything else was live to play a game. I'm going to tell you that I was able to finish about six, I'll say 5 to 6 of the 30 games, of the 6 inning games, 5 to 6, 6 inning games of the 30 attempts. And playing 3v3, only 2 times I was able to get it working, and that was attempting roughly 25 times. So 2 times getting it working, never being able to complete a game out of 25 attempts, and 30 total attempts in probably 6 games completed. So the majority of the games were completed 2v2, which was 4, and 3v3, which was 2 were playable but were never completed. So 6 out of 30 is not good, and only 4 completed games out of 30 attempts is not good. That leads me to believe that the server issues are not going to be corrected, especially by April. Hell, if I go into it last year with you guys, I'm being completely honest, the gameplay was absolutely atrocious as far as lagging and things on the screen. Sometimes you will see players teleport all over the screen where they weren't even supposed to be in a position to get the ball, and then they get there, and then you're wondering, geez, that's not an out on my screen, but it was a home run on the other screen. What's going on? And then because of the desyncing issues of what you would see inside the game would just fail to continue to progress, and people would lag out, or the console would just freeze. So this has been an issue, not just from last year with the addition of the Xbox players, but playing online has solely been an issue since it's been introduced. And I would say roughly from PlayStation 4 standards, from 2015 all the way on to 2022, there's been consistent issues from San Diego studios as far as trying to play a game online and finishing it. Hell, there's been consistent issues toward the end of the year. We're talking about when the game gets released in April. We were talking about people playing last year's game all the way up until February, when there's still patches where people can't finish games, stats aren't checked correctly, stuff still isn't synced on the screen, and games freeze all the time. There's been consistent issues, I would say, for a solid 7 or 8 years. So now introducing a co-op mode in this regard, and then also introducing Xbox players and the Nintendo Switch players this year. It's nice to have a co-op aspect of it, but it'd be more nicer if you can actually get a chance to actually play the game online with your friends and have it complete and have everything else be good. Because quite frankly, 3-on-3 was absolutely unplayable. Only got it to work twice up until about the 2nd inning until it froze. And the only time I could actually complete a game, which is 4 times, was on 2v2. So if we're already having issues in the beta trying to invite our friends in other consoles, if you had an Xbox or Nintendo Switch, that's a problem. If you can't even complete the games already on the new co-op mode, that's a problem. And if you already had the existing issues from the last 7 or 8 years, because servers aren't big enough to address the amount of money that's already made in Diamond Dynasty, and I'll take it a step further as far as EA aspects of it, of Madden Ultimate Team or Hockey Ultimate Team or FIFA Ultimate Team, things like that. If you're not doing what you need to do to be able to address those issues from years past, bringing in a game mode like this and expecting it to work in April isn't going to be good. And another last thing I want to bring up here. When this game launched in April or late March of last year on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox and all that stuff, you can argue Game Pass or whatever you want, the game wasn't playable for about 3 weeks. So now you're adding another console base on top of it. How long is it going to be until this game's actually playable? And aren't people going to be expecting refunds if their game doesn't work in day one, especially when you go online and try to play with your friends? Because look, I got some casual friends in here that love sports games. That's all they digest. We've been waiting for an online sports game for a long, long time now. If you're going in there and they're paying $70 for an next-gen game, and that doesn't work day one, and that also doesn't work 6-7 months down the road because the server issues have been there for a long, long time, you're going to get a lot of people angry. So San Diego Studios, Microsoft, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, all the platforms that they're on, they're going to have to get all of this stuff together in April, which is a relatively short time within the first week of April, to try to get all of that stuff squared away. Again, The online co-op 2v2 and 3v3 makes a lot of sense. It's something I think a lot of people are going to try to enjoy, and they should. But you have to remember in the back of your mind whether or not it's going to work. And if you're talking about whether or not this game was worth $75 for a next gen price point, I would wait till it's on sale, probably 4 or 5 months down the road. Definitely get this thing toward the latter end of it around Black Friday when you can definitely get it on sale. Then give it a chance, but I definitely don't expect it to work on day one. But that's really all I have to say about that. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't be afraid to contact me at facebook.com/tobeyourgunslinger or Twitter at John Ryan. I will get this posted up on the website. This will be on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. I appreciate you guys checking out the stream and live thoughts and all that, and I will talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.